Sometimes life seems to push us in directions that don't make any sense. Doors close, people drift away, challenges appear one after another, and you start to wonder, am I on the right path? The world teaches us to measure success by the number of approvals we receive, but when it comes to God's guidance, the signs are entirely different. The truth is that divine paths are mysterious and often contradict what the world values. Maybe you've been rejected by those around you, faced never-ending tribulations, or even felt an inexplicable peace amidst chaos. That's exactly what we're going to talk about today. These are signs that God is confirming you're on the right path, even when everything around you says otherwise. Being rejected by the world can seem painful, but it's a profound sign that you are on the right path. Jesus warned about this, saying that those who align with him would also face opposition and rejection. When your opinions and beliefs don't fit into the world's standards, it indicates that you are following a direction that few find. It's like rowing against the current, where each stroke is a confirmation that you are not giving in to worldly influences. Imagine someone who chooses not to be corrupted in a dishonest work environment. They may be socially excluded, but this isolation is a clear sign that they are following a divine standard and walking towards God's presence. Rejection also comes in the form of closed doors or missed opportunities, which in the world's eyes seem like failure, but from a divine perspective are signs of protection. When God says no to something that seemed promising, he is actually redirecting you to something greater. It's like the story of Joseph, who was rejected by his own brothers and sold into slavery. Yet, he remained firm in his faith, knowing that those tribulations were shaping his character. And in the end, that rejection paved the way for him to become second in command in Egypt, something he never would have achieved if he hadn't been initially rejected. Thus, every no you receive, every criticism that seems unjust, is a reminder that you do not belong to this world. It's God's way of setting you apart for a greater purpose. Rejection, no matter how painful, is a sign that you are being refined and prepared for higher spiritual challenges and commitments. So instead of resenting it, look at each rejection as a sign from God, confirming that his direction is manifesting in your life. And it's this same direction that often leads to trials and the perception of God's presence in a way that is only possible when the world turns its back on you. Going through trials doesn't mean you're off the right path. In fact, it's these moments of tribulation that strengthen your faith and bring God's presence closer to you. Isaiah 43:2 makes it clear that even when you pass through turbulent waters, God is by your side. This doesn't eliminate difficulties, but it does bring the certainty that no matter how challenging the path is, you will never be alone. Remember Job? He lost everything: wealth, family, health. And yet, he remained steadfast. His perseverance was rewarded with a deeper understanding of God's presence amidst his pain. When you go through tribulations, what changes is your perspective. You no longer focus on the problem, but on who is by your side during it. These trials are like spiritual gyms, where each obstacle turns into an exercise to strengthen your character and faith. In the midst of challenges like unemployment, family problems, or illnesses, it's normal to feel lost. But these are precisely the moments when God's presence manifests with more clarity. Imagine you're climbing a mountain. The ascent is arduous and the fatigue immense, but every step, even the most painful ones, brings you closer to the top. During the climb, you may not see the peak, but you feel that you're elevating. Such are the challenges, signs that you are moving towards something greater and more meaningful. Instead of viewing trials as punishments, understand them as signs that God is shaping you for something bigger. It's in the darkest moments that his light shines the brightest. When you face a difficulty, ask yourself, what is God trying to teach me here? This perspective changes everything. Trials are not interruptions, but confirmations that God's presence is active in your life, preparing you to be a living testimony of faith. And just like any journey of overcoming, the final reward is absolute peace amidst chaos, something that only those on the right path can experience. True peace, the kind that remains even in the midst of storms, is an undeniable sign that you are on the right path. Philippians 4:7 describes this peace as something that surpasses all human understanding. This means that when everyone around you is worried, anxious, or lost, you manage to maintain a state of inner tranquility. A clear example is Jesus, who slept peacefully while his disciples panicked amidst a storm at sea. This type of peace doesn't come from ignoring problems, but from a deep trust that, no matter what happens, God's presence is with you, guiding every step. And when you experience this peace, it's as if an invisible sign is saying, "Keep going, you are on the right path." But how do you develop this peace amidst daily challenges? A good starting point is to cultivate a time for meditation and prayer, allowing your mind to disconnect from worldly worries and connect with divine patterns. Practicing gratitude is also a powerful step. Instead of focusing on what's going wrong, start by being thankful for every small sign of God in your life. The daily practice of reading biblical proverbs, such as "A heart at peace gives life to the body," Proverbs 14:30, helps reinforce this mindset. Think of a person who loses their job but still feels an inexplicable peace because they know their provision comes from God and not from a paycheck. This kind of peace cannot be manufactured. It's a confirmation that God's direction is manifesting. This peace is an indicator that you are not compromising with worldly influences. The world teaches that peace depends on circumstances, but those who are on the right path know that it depends solely on faith and trust in God's presence. And it is this peace that acts as a shield, protecting your mind and heart against the anxieties life brings. So, when you manage to maintain this tranquility amidst chaos, have no doubts. This is a clear sign that you are aligned with God's will. As you continue to walk with this inner peace, your strength to resist compromising divine standards becomes unshakable, even when faced with tempting challenges. Standing firm in divine standards, even when everything around you pressures you to give in, is one of the strongest signs that you are on the right path. The story of Joseph, who refused the advances of Potiphar's wife, is a classic example of someone who didn't compromise his integrity, even under intense pressure. He knew that giving in to that sin would not only betray his master, but also the presence of God in his life. The result? He was unjustly imprisoned, but this apparent defeat paved the way for God to elevate him to the position of governor of Egypt. Thus, when you refuse to give in to the world's standards, even if it means facing rejection and isolation, you are actually strengthening your connection to the spiritual commitments that God has set for you. This commitment can also manifest in small daily choices. For example, when you refuse an opportunity that could benefit you financially but would require you to violate your ethical values, you are demonstrating that money is not your master. Or when you decide to turn off the television during a program that doesn't align with divine standards, even though everyone around you is watching. Every small decision you make, in accordance with biblical proverbs, reinforces your perseverance and strengthens your conviction. These moments are like bricks, building a fortress of faith and determination that will protect you against any worldly influence. Not compromising divine standards also means refusing shortcuts, resisting the temptation of quick solutions that are not aligned with God's direction. Daniel, for example, refused the king's food, which was not in accordance with his faith. He knew that this simple act of eating would go against the holiness that God had commanded him to uphold. The result? His health and appearance surpassed those who ate from the royal table. This shows that when you don't compromise your faith, God manifests in every detail. If opposition arises because of this firmness, see it as a confirmation. You are where God wants you to be. And so, even though few find this path, the reward for staying firm is to live in full harmony with His will. Now that you know the signs, the question is, what are you going to do with this knowledge? Will you ignore them and keep wondering if you're on the right path, or will you embrace each sign as a confirmation that God is guiding your steps? Stop and think. How many times have you felt rejected by the world and tried to change just to fit in? How many times have you faced tribulations and wondered why? Or experienced an inexplicable peace and didn't understand where it came from? And what about the times when you stood firm not compromising your standards, even when it seemed like the worst choice. All of these are clear signs that you're walking in the right direction, and that direction is God's presence in your life. So, from now on, every time you feel alone, rejected, or misunderstood, remember, you're on a path that few find. And this path leads to true peace and a deep relationship with the Creator. If you want to continue learning to identify God's signs and grow spiritually, make sure to subscribe to the channel and activate notifications. That way, you won't miss any content that can transform your journey. After all, following God's direction isn't always easy, but it's the only path that brings true peace amidst challenges. Leave a comment below, share how these signs have shown up in your life, and let's keep this conversation going. See you in the next video.